No one tells an heir to the throne that to save the crown he must sometimes sever his own flesh and blood. When Prince William slid his royal restructuring plan across the table to his father, he knew it was more than a blueprint for reform. It was a line drawn in the sand between duty and family, between preserving an institution and sacrificing those he once held dearest. On one side stood a monarchy rotting from within, crumbling under scandals, privilege and names the public no longer wished to honor. On the other stood his brother Harry, a fading memory of a once inseparable companion. His stepmother, Queen Camilla, a woman who never fully belonged to the royal fold, and his father, King Charles, slowly retreating into the shadows of time and unspoken truths. William wasn't born to betray, but he understood if no one dared to end the fractures gnawing at the monarchy day by day, silence itself would become the greatest sin. And sometimes the only one who can save the crown is the one who must first shatter what seems untouchable. The April winds howled through the ancient stone corridors of Sandringham House, slipping through every crevice as if whispering of a monarchy teetering on the edge. Inside a private meeting room, the glow of crystal chandeliers bathed the oak-paneled walls in a dance of light and shadow, mirroring the unrest within the royal dynasty. At the center of the room, King Charles III sat motionless on a velvet-clad chair, his hands clasped tightly on his lap, his frail fingers trembling faintly from age and the weight of unrelenting duty. His eyes, once ablaze with the ambition to safeguard the royal legacy, were now clouded, veiled by a mist of worry and illness. Moments earlier, his private physician, a tall, lean man with silver-rimmed glasses, had left the room after delivering a merciless verdict. "Your Majesty, you must cancel all engagements for the next 6 months or risk irreversible damage to your nervous system." The words were not just medical advice, but a prophecy of a dynasty's collapse if immediate change didn't come. Charles felt their weight not only on his health, but on the throne he had devoted his life to preserving. Across from the king, Prince William, heir to the throne, sat with a ramrod-straight posture, his broad shoulders radiating a quiet but unshakable resolve. His face, once a symbol of youthful hope, now bore the etched lines of a man who had endured too much loss, his mother, the unity of his family, and now his father's health. Without a moment's hesitation, he opened a black leather briefcase and pulled out a thick dossier, its cover bearing a simple yet weighty title, the Royal Restructuring Plan. Within it lay a bold blueprint for the monarchy's future, with 3 proposals, as sharp as a blade, transferring control of the Invictus Games, the international multi-sport event for wounded, injured, and sick servicemen and women. Prince Harry's pride and joy to Mike Tyndall, a beloved former rugby star, curtailing the public roles of Queen Camilla, suspected of wielding power to favor her inner circle, and severing all financial support from the Royal Public Support Fund for Tom Parker Bowles, Camilla's son, to quash accusations of favoritism. William slid the dossier toward his father, his gaze unwavering on Charles's weathered face. "This is not a choice, father," he said, his voice low and resolute, each word carved from stone. "This is the only way we survive. The public is losing faith. Recent polls show only 42% of Britons still support the monarchy. The royal family is fracturing from within with Harry's endless scandals, questions about Camilla's finances, and our lack of transparency. If we don't act now, the throne will crumble, not from enemies outside, but from those who share our blood." William paused, drawing a deep breath, a flicker of pain crossing his eyes as he mentioned his brother. His motives stemmed from a silent vow made as a boy standing by his mother's coffin, Princess Diana's, to build a monarchy that was transparent, approachable, and stronger, not just to honor her legacy, but to secure a future for his children, George, Charlotte, and Louis. He believed the Invictus Games, though Harry's achievement had been overshadowed by personal controversies, and Mike Tyndall would bring stability. Reducing Camilla's role was meant to silence rumors of her manipulating power, while cutting support for Tom Parker Bowles signaled that the monarchy would prioritize the nation over family ties. But deep in his heart, William knew these decisions were cuts into his own family, into Harry, the brother who was once his closest ally, into Camilla, the stepmother he had never fully embraced, and into his father torn between love and duty. "We must do this for the future of the monarchy," William added, his voice trembling slightly, betraying emotion for the first time. And for Catherine. She fought to return, and I cannot let her or any of us endure a system that's collapsing. Charles remained silent, his lips pressed into a tight line, his gaze drifting to the window where cherry blossoms bloomed quietly in the cold wind, falling like fragments of a bygone golden era. In that moment, he was no longer a mighty king, but a father torn between his two sons. At the room's edge, a trusted aide of Queen Camilla, Mrs. Margaret Voss, scribbled notes silently, but hidden in her sleeve, a tiny recording device captured every word, every breath of the meeting. Though absent, Camilla had ensured she would know every detail, sensing that William's proposals threatened her position. That tape was not just a record, it was a weapon, a silent declaration of war, poised to ignite the simmering tensions within the royal family. As Voss glanced up, her eyes met William's, and for a fleeting moment a faint smile curled her lips. The smile of someone who knew the real battle was only beginning. Beneath the golden California sun in Montecito, the lavish mansion of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle seemed a world apart from the storms raging across England. But inside, the air was thick with tension, a battlefield of its own. Harry stood by a grand window, gripping his phone, his face flushed with fury. The screen glowed with a headline from the Times: Prince William, hands Invictus Games, to Mike Tyndall, Harry sidelined. The word sideline cut into his pride like a dagger. "They've cast me out," Harry growled, his eyes reddening, torn between rage and pain. He flung the phone onto the sofa, where it bounced before hitting the marble floor with a sharp clatter. "The Invictus Games were mine. I built them from nothing for soldiers like me, for those who've lost so much. Does William think he can erase me like that?" Meghan stepped in from the kitchen, a teacup in hand, but her gaze held no softness. It was razor-sharp, honed by years of battling the media and the monarchy. She set the cup down, the porcelain clinking harshly against the wood. Moving to Harry's side, she placed a hand on his shoulder, but the touch was not to soothe, it was a call to action. "We can't let them rewrite your story, Harry," she whispered, her voice low but piercing. "William wants to wipe out everything you've built, to make you invisible, to strengthen his own power. But we'll show the world they can't control us." Meghan's words poured fuel on the fire smoldering in Harry's heart. He strode quickly to a corner of the room where an intricately carved oak box sat on a bookshelf coated in a thin layer of dust. It was where he kept his most cherished relics, handwritten letters, photographs, and a few printed emails from his mother, Princess Diana, fragments of a woman he believed the monarchy had betrayed. These emails passed to Harry in 1998 by Diana's close friend, Mrs. Elizabeth Hartley, a year after his mother's death, were private confessions Diana had shared with Hartley in her final years. They were the outpourings of a mother fearful for her son's futures. Harry opened the box, his hands trembling, as he sifted through yellowed pages until his eyes locked on a printed email dated March 12, 1996. Diana's words were laced with worry, almost desperate. "Elizabeth, I can't stop thinking about William. He's so sensitive, it breaks my heart. I fear the royal system will crush his soul as it tried to crush mine. The throne isn't glory, it's a machine that devours everything good. How can I protect my boys when I'm trapped by it myself?" Reading those lines, Harry's heart felt squeezed. Though the email wasn't written to him, his mother's words echoed in his mind like a warning from the past. Diana hadn't mentioned him in this note, but her fear for William, that the throne might destroy his brother, ignited a surge of anger in Harry. "Mother was right," he whispered, his voice choked. "William has let the throne turn him into the man she dreaded." Meghan stood behind him, snapping a photo of the email with her phone, the screen's light reflecting in her eyes. "Send this to Lorraine," she said, referring to a renowned American journalist. "She'll make the world see William betraying his own family." Hours later, Harry sat at his laptop, his fingers hesitating over the keyboard. Finally, he typed a brief email to King Charles. No subject, no greeting. Just one line: "I hope you see how William is tearing us apart." He hit send, his heart sinking into darkness. The response was a chilling silence from Buckingham Palace, a silent blade slicing through what remained of the bond between father and son. In London, Camilla had received the recording of the meeting from Margaret Voss. Enraged by William's targeting of her, she ordered Voss to collaborate with an underground media network, to leak rumors about Catherine's health, aiming to overshadow her return and undermine William's credibility. Camilla believed that if Catherine faltered, William would be isolated and his reform plan would collapse. The fading glow of dusk bathed Clarence's house in a faint orange hue, as if nature itself mourned the decline of an era. In a small drawing room where Persian rugs and antique furniture spoke of power and glory, Queen Camilla sat alone clutching the latest financial report. The bolded words sliced like a blade. Termination of financial support for Mr. Tom Parker Bowles from the Royal Public Support Fund. Each word was a wound not just to her finances, but to her pride, a mother, a queen who had spent a lifetime securing her place in the monarchy's shadows. Camilla set the paper down, her movements deliberate, as if delaying the pain surging in her chest. Her gaze lifted to a portrait of King Charles across the room, his smile in royal regalia gleaming under the light. But that smile now felt distant, a reminder that even the man she loved couldn't shield her from fate's cruel edge. "So William has decided to cast me aside," she whispered, her voice trembling, with a mix of fury and despair. "He thinks he can push me out to build his own dynasty, and Charles has let him do it." That evening, the dining table was set with exquisite dishes, pan-seared salmon walnut salad, and white Bordeaux wine. But Camilla touched nothing. The food grew cold before her, much like her heart hardening in the face of harsh reality. Instead of dining, she rose and moved to her study where the chandelier's dim light cloaked the room's dark corners and her own soul. She summoned 4 loyal aides and Simon Reed, a former Daily Mail consultant, known for turning scandals into weapons. In the flickering glow, Camilla sat at the head of the table, her eyes sharp as a blade. "William wants to strip me of power, but I'll show him the cost of betrayal," she said, her voice low but burning with resolve. "He thinks he can reshape the monarchy. I'll tear down his foundations, starting with those around him." A plan was crafted, each detail calculated like moves on a chessboard. Camilla ordered her team to launch 2 prongs to undermine William. First, a public attack on the Middleton family, sowing doubts about the origins of their wealth and financial transparency, to tarnish Catherine's credibility, William's strongest ally. Second, manipulating Prince Harry to create chaos, exploiting his anger to strike at William. Camilla directed Margaret Voss to send anonymous messages to Harry in Montecito, urging him to leak Diana's emails to hurt his brother. "Harry is the perfect pawn," Camilla whispered to Voss, her eyes glinting with cunning. "Blinded by rage, he's easy to control, and will use that to ruin William's plans." Camilla gripped her wine glass, her slender fingers tightening until her knuckles whitened. Her gaze was no longer that of a regal queen, but of a mother ready to do anything to protect her son Tom and the power she had built. "William thinks he can reshape the monarchy without paying a price," she said, her voice sinking to a near whisper. "I'll make him see that every decision has consequences, and his family will pay first." As her aides departed, Camilla rose and stepped to the window, staring into the darkened garden. Somewhere in the night, the wind howled like fate's mocking laughter, but within her a fire of vengeance burned, ready to consume everything William was striving to build. On August 2nd, 2024, London's skies glowed with rare summer sunlight, as if nature itself celebrated the return of an icon. At the National Institute for Child Development, hundreds gathered outside waving flags and holding signs proclaiming "Catherine, our Queen." When Princess Catherine stepped from the royal car, the crowd erupted in cheers and applause. Her hair, now cropped short to mask the scars of chemotherapy, framed a face gaunt yet radiant. Her pale blue dress, designed by a British couturier, accentuated her delicate frame, but it was her eyes blazing with unyielding resolve that held the public spellbound. Inside the hall, Catherine stood at the podium, the camera lights casting a halo around her. Her voice, though quivering with emotion, rang with the strength of someone who had crossed the line between life and death. "I haven't returned for duty alone. I've returned for belief. Our children, our future, deserve love and protection right now." Each word was a hammer blow, shattering doubts about her health and capability. The audience rose their applause, thunderous, and on social media, the hashtag #JustCatherineStrong soared to global trending status within hours. But Catherine's powerful comeback ignited Camilla's fury, who saw her as a direct threat to her counterattack. From the sidelines, Camilla watched with icy eyes, her hand clutching a silk scarf. Prince William stood by Catherine, holding her hand in a public show of support, but his gaze caught the chilling stare of his stepmother. Camilla, sensing her position endangered by Catherine's return, and William's steadfast push for the Royal Restructuring Act, whispered to Margaret Voss, "She's bolstering William's power. If we don't act now, his reform plan will succeed, and I'll lose everything." Camilla approached Catherine, her smile polished by decades in the royal sphere, masking her true intent. "Health is fragile, Catherine. Don't let it lead to your downfall," she murmured, her words laced with unveiled menace, hinting at the sabotage she was about to unleash. Catherine met her with a cold, unflinching stare, but inside a question stirred. What is Camilla hiding, and why is she targeting me to hurt William? In a shadowed corner of the hall, Simon Reed, Camilla's media strategist, discreetly texted a contact in the tabloid press, ready to release the video next week, at the peak of Catherine's acclaim. Under Camilla's orders, Reed had planned to leak a sensitive video, Catherine collapsing from exhaustion after chemotherapy, secretly filmed by a former palace staffer Camilla had bribed. If the public sees Catherine as frail, they'll question William's leadership, Reed told Voss as they left the event. Camilla wants the world to see William's reforms as a mistake, with Catherine as his greatest weakness. That night, William and Catherine sat together in their private study at Kensington Palace. William, still tense from meetings with advisors about the Royal Restructuring Act's progress, held her hand, his eyes filled with worry. "I know Camilla won't let this go," he said, his voice low. "She's targeting you to undermine me, Kate. I've backed her into a corner with this act, and she'll strike back with everything she has." Catherine nodded, her gaze resolute despite the weight in her heart. "They'll come for me to hurt you," she replied, her voice soft but firm. "But I've survived cancer, William. I won't let Camilla or anyone else destroy what we're building. We need to be ready for her next move." Catherine stepped to her desk, opening a small wooden box she always kept close, a relic handed to her in 2011 by Elizabeth Hartley, Diana's dearest friend, shortly after her engagement to William. In her final years, Diana had entrusted Hartley with an old cassette tape and a handwritten note instructing that it be given to the woman who will stand by William, who can protect his light. With a mother's intuition, Diana seemed to foresee that one day William would need a steadfast partner to face the monarchy's darkness. Inside the box, the cassette lay quietly, its plastic surface worn by time, beside Diana's note in elegant script. "Listen when she is ready. The truth will protect her." Catherine had never played the tape. Part of her feared the secrets it might reveal. Part of her felt the time wasn't right. But tonight, as moonlight streamed through the window, illuminating her face, she knew the moment had come. She held the cassette, her fingers tracing its surface, her heart pounding, with the certainty that Diana's words would not only shield her, but serve as a weapon to thwart Camilla's schemes and bolster William's reforms. "We won't let her win," Catherine whispered, her eyes ablaze with determination. Under the warm golden glow of Kensington Palace, the ancient stone walls seemed to whisper of inevitable change. Prince William, now bearing a heavier burden than ever, stood at the heart of a monarchy in transformation. After weeks of heated debates at Buckingham Palace, King Charles, though, reluctantly approved William's Royal Restructuring Act on July 15, 2024, granting him control over the monarchy's core operations, from budget allocations to international representation. But as he signed the document, Charles clasped William's hand, his eyes heavy with sorrow. "You're treading a dangerous path, William," he said, his voice somber yet stern. "These changes may save the monarchy, but they could tear our family apart forever. Are you ready to pay that price?" William, in a meticulously tailored gray suit, nodded, but his heart was heavy. He knew the Act's provisions limiting public funding to just 5 royals, excluding Camilla and Harry, and cutting financial ties to Tom Parker Bowles had made him a target for both his stepmother and brother. But he had no choice. "If we don't change, Father, we'll lose everything?" William replied, his voice steady but resolute. "The public demands a transparent, strong, united monarchy. I'm doing this for George, Charlotte, Louis, and for Catherine." Every decision he made, from signing agreements at the G7 summit to redirecting royal funds to charities, was scrutinized by the public and media, placing him at the center of a monarchy at a historic crossroads. To prepare for this role, Edward Langley, a seasoned advisor who had served Queen Elizabeth II, was called back from retirement. With white hair and piercing eyes, Langley sat across from William in the Royal Library, where oak shelves held centuries of history. The throne isn't held by force, but by wisdom, Langley said, his voice deep and certain. But beware, Your Highness. Your family is the real battlefield. Camilla wields a vast media network, and Harry, though far away, still has influence. They won't accept being sidelined without a fight. William nodded, but inside his fears about Camilla's and Harry's reactions grew. He knew Camilla, with her team of aides and tabloid connections, would scheme to undermine him, and Harry, wounded by his exclusion from the Invictus Games, might unwittingly become her ally in this war. Meanwhile, Princess Catherine quietly relaunched her early years project, a heartfelt initiative to support children's education and development. This time she built an independent team with its own budget, free from Camilla's controlled funds. William backed her, fully seeing it as a way to bolster the monarchy's public image and cement Catherine's role as a pillar of his reforms. One evening by the fireplace at Kensington, William held Catherine's hand, his eyes filled with gratitude but tinged with worry. "You're my strength," he said, his voice warm but heavy. "But I fear what I'm doing, cutting out Camilla, sidelining Harry, will make you a target. Camilla won't forgive, and Harry, I don't know how far my brother will go." Catherine gripped his hand tightly, her eyes steely with resolve. "Camilla or Harry may come for me, but I won't let them destroy what we're building. We'll protect this monarchy together." Far away in Montecito, California, Prince Harry sat alone in his office, the laptop's glow illuminating his face, where lines of age and struggle were beginning to show. He had just received an email from a former royal advisor revealing that William's Royal Restructuring Act had been approved. The words "Prince Harry excluded from all royal roles" stabbed deep into his heart. Furious and hurt, Harry decided to work with journalist Lorraine Mitchell, sending her a series of Diana's emails he'd received from Elizabeth Hartley in 1998. These emails, filled with Diana's fears about the royal system corrupting William, were the most potent weapon he believed could shake Buckingham Palace. "William thinks he can erase me from this family," Harry muttered, his hand clenching the mouse. "I'll show the world he's wrong." But Harry was unaware he was being manipulated. Camilla's aide, Margaret Voss, had secretly sent him anonymous messages posing as a loyal supporter. One read, "William is destroying your family, Harry. Let the world know the truth about him." The words, like fuel on a fire, spurred Harry to leak Diana's emails. Under Camilla's direction, Voss knew Harry's attack on William would sow chaos, weakening his credibility and paving the way for Camilla's plan to sabotage Catherine. "Harry is the perfect pawn," Voss reported to Camilla via an encrypted call. "He doesn't know we're pulling the strings." On the morning of August 20th, 2024, the world erupted when the New York Times published a bombshell article headlined, "William will be consumed by his own throne." The piece quoted Diana's email sent by Harry to Lorraine Mitchell, revealing her fears that the royal system would turn William into a distant, cold figure controlled by power. Though written in 1996, Diana's words resonated like a modern warning, sparking fierce debate across newspapers and social media. The public split sharply. Some praised William as a future king, bold enough to reform the monarchy. Others condemned him for betraying his family and Diana's legacy to cement his authority. In his Buckingham Palace office, William read the article, his hands gripping the oak desk, his face taut but resolute. "Harry's gone too far," he told Edward Langley, his voice low but seething with restrained anger. "He thinks these emails will hurt me, but he doesn't see Camilla orchestrating this." Langley, his eyes sharp, nodded. "Camilla is a master manipulator, Your Highness. She knows Harry is your weakness and is using him to undermine your Royal Restructuring Act. But you must stay the course. Respond with action, not words." William nodded, his gaze shifting to the window where London's sunlight streamed through, a reminder of his heavy duty. "I won't let Camilla or Harry destroy what I'm building," he said, his voice firm. "For Catherine, for my children, for the monarchy." Catherine, aware of Camilla's hand in the email leak, resolved to protect William. She requested a private meeting with Harry in Diana's old library at Kensington Palace. The room, with its dark oak shelves and the scent of aged paper, seemed to hold Diana's spirit, making the encounter more profound than a mere conversation between sister-in-law and brother-in-law. When Harry entered, dressed in a simple jacket, his face betrayed tension and pain. Catherine, in an elegant gray silk dress, stood by the window, her eyes both resolute and empathetic. "You're being used, Harry," she said, her voice low but sharp. "Camilla's behind this. She's using you to weaken William and indirectly to hurt me. But William isn't your enemy. He's trying to save the monarchy." Harry, clutching an old photo of Diana embracing her two sons, shook his head, his eyes red. "William betrayed me first," he replied, his voice choking. "He took the Invictus Games, cast me out of the family. Mother would never forgive him." Catherine gazed at the photo, her fingers brushing Diana's face, seeking solace from the woman who left her a weighty legacy. "William is doing what he believes is right," she said, her voice soft but certain. "But Camilla is manipulating you to destroy him. Listen to this, Harry, and decide whose side you're on." She handed him a USB containing a copy of Diana's recording given to her by Elizabeth Hartley in 2011. "This is the truth your mother wanted to protect, Catherine," said, her eyes locked on Harry's. "But if you keep letting Camilla lead you, you'll destroy her legacy." Harry took the USB, his fingers trembling slightly. He said nothing, only nodded, then left the room, leaving Catherine alone in the heavy silence. But she knew time was running out. She had learned from a loyal aide that Camilla, through Simon Reed, was preparing to leak a video of Catherine collapsing post-chemotherapy. "If the public sees Catherine as weak, they'll doubt William's leadership," Reed told Camilla in a secret meeting at Clarence House. Camilla nodded, her eyes cold. "Do it now," she ordered. "Before William solidifies his power, we must turn the public against him." At Kensington, Catherine shared her meeting with Harry with William. "He's hurting, but I believe he'll change when he hears the recording," she said. William embraced her, his eyes filled with worry. "Camilla won't stop Kate," he said. "But I swear I'll protect you, even if it means facing my entire family." Catherine smiled, touching his cheek. "We'll get through this together, William. Camilla won't win." In Buckingham Palace's ancient meeting room, where portraits of monarchs past lined the walls, the air seemed to hold its breath. The crystal chandelier's light bathed the oak table, where Prince William stood tall, his voice steady yet resonant with the power of a man ready to reshape a dynasty. Before him sat a closed council of senior advisors, royals, and top lawyers. In his hands was the final draft of the Royal Restructuring Act, a document not just reforming the monarchy, but proclaiming a new era. William, in a tailored navy suit, spoke with clarity and conviction. "This is our last chance to restore public trust," he said, his eyes sweeping across the room from seasoned advisors to tense royals. "The British monarchy cannot survive divided by scandal and distrust. Polls show public faith at its lowest in history. If we don't act now, we'll lose everything, not just the throne, but the legacy of those before us." His act was a sharp cut, limiting public funding to 5 royals, William, Catherine, and 3 others active in official duties. Queen Camilla was excluded, a move that made the room's atmosphere suffocating. Prince Harry was entirely removed from royal roles, a decision unsurprising yet heart-wrenching. And Tom Parker Bowles, Camilla's son, was cut off from royal funds, a direct blow to her power. As William spoke, each word struck like a hammer, dismantling the monarchy's outdated structure. But his eyes betrayed no triumph, only a silent pain. The pain of a brother forced to sideline his sibling, a son confronting his stepmother, and a husband knowing his choices put Catherine, his greatest ally, in the eye of a storm. "I'm doing this for our children's future," William added, his voice wavering as he named George, Charlotte, and Louis. "And for Catherine, who fought to stand by me. We cannot let her or this monarchy collapse under internal strife." After an hour of heated debate, the council voted to pass the Royal Restructuring Act by a majority, officially granting William the power to shape the monarchy's future. But as advisors clapped in approval, Camilla, seated in a corner with a face cold as stone, stayed silent. She bowed her head, hiding a faint calculating smile. "He thinks he's won," she whispered to Margaret Voss as they left. "But I'll show William the cost of challenging me." King Charles III sat at the table's head, still as a statue. His hands, now gaunt and speckled with age, rested on the chair, his gaze vacant. Throughout the meeting he spoke not a word, but his silence was heavier than any speech. As the council dispersed, advisors leaving in hushed tension, Charles remained alone in the vast room. He summoned William to a private chamber afterward, his eyes brimming with pain. "You've won, William," he said, his voice heavy with sorrow. "But do you know the cost? Harry will never forgive you and Camilla. She won't stop." William bowed his head, his heart weighed down. "I know, Father," he replied. "But if I don't do this, we'll lose everything, not just the monarchy, but what grandmother and mother sacrificed to protect." Charles walked to a small safe hidden behind a portrait of Queen Victoria. With trembling hands, he opened it, retrieving a sealed letter, a relic from his mother, Queen Elizabeth II. It bore a single line in her elegant, incisive script. "The strength of a crown lies in the heavy responsibility of the decisions its wearer must make." Charles handed it to William, his eyes misting with unshed tears. "Remember my mother's words, William," he said. "You're protecting the monarchy, but don't let it destroy your family. Catherine is your light, keep her safe." Outside, Buckingham August sunlight bathed the square, where thousands of fans gathered waving flags and chanting William and Catherine's names. As the couple stepped onto the balcony, cheers roared like waves. Catherine, in an elegant white dress, held William's hand, her smile radiant yet shadowed by awareness. William, regal in demeanor, waved to the crowd, but inside his fears of Camilla's and Harry's plots grew. He gripped Catherine's hand tighter, whispering, "We've cleared the first hurdle, Kate. But Camilla and Harry won't let it rest. They'll target you to hurt me." Catherine squeezed his hand, her eyes resolute. "We'll face them together, William. They can't destroy what we're building." 3 weeks later, on the evening of September 10th, 2024, Britain and the world held their breath as the BBC aired a special broadcast. The screen faded to black, and Princess Diana's voice rang out clear and emotional, as if she stood in the living rooms of millions. "I've seen the schemes within the royal family." Diana's voice said, somber yet resolute plans woven in the shadows to protect power no matter the cost. The recording, extracted from a cassette Catherine received from Elizabeth Hartley in 2011, exposed how Camilla and her advisors manipulated the media, crafting false narratives to shield her image and harm those who challenged her, including Diana herself. The 10-minute recording shook the monarchy's foundations with every second. Diana spoke of her isolation, her surveillance, and her fear that her loved ones, William, Harry, and the woman who would stand by William, would face the same fate. The tape ended with a direct message to William's future partner, recorded months before Diana's death. "To the woman by William's side, protect his light, for I cannot. Be strong and don't let them extinguish your fire." Catherine, who chose to release the recording after consulting William, stood by his side in their Kensington Palace drawing room as the broadcast aired. "We had to do this," she told William beforehand, her eyes blazing with determination. "Not just to shield me from Camilla's schemes, but to protect you and the future of the monarchy you're building." William nodded, holding her close, his heart pounding with the knowledge that this decision would change everything. "You're my strength, Kate," he whispered, "but I'm sorry for dragging you into this storm." When the broadcast ended, the world was stunned. Major outlets from The Guardian to The New York Times published analyses hailing the recording as the moment that redefined the British monarchy. The public, once divided, now rallied behind Catherine and William, their outrage directed at Camilla. The video of Catherine collapsing post-chemotherapy, which Camilla and Simon Reed planned to leak, was stopped before airing, thanks to a loyal aide of William's who uncovered the plot and alerted his media team. Likewise, Camilla's campaign to smear the Middleton family with rumors of financial impropriety was swiftly dismantled. William's team, backed by Catherine's resolve, commissioned an independent audit that cleared the Middletons of any wrongdoing, exposing Camilla's planted stories as baseless. The tabloids she had influenced lost all credibility, their lies crumbling under public scrutiny. Camilla's lost on every front. William's aide reported a note of triumph in his voice. "Her weapons are gone." At Clarence House, Camilla watched the broadcast in silence, her face pale as wax. As Diana's voice laid bare her manipulations, she gripped her chair nails, digging into the leather. "William and Catherine," she muttered, her voice trembling with fury and defeat. "They think they can ruin me?" The next morning, a curt statement came from her office. "Queen Camilla will temporarily withdraw from public engagements to focus on rest and health." But everyone knew it wasn't rest. It was defeat, a retreat before a storm she couldn't withstand. In Montecito, Prince Harry sat before his TV, clutching the USB Catherine had given him. He had listened to the recording before its release, and each of Diana's words pierced his heart like a blade. He realized he had been Camilla's pawn, driven by anger and pain to attack William. 2 days later, he appeared in an online interview with Oprah Winfrey, his voice breaking as he publicly apologized. "I let my anger blind me," he said. "Camilla used me to hurt William and Catherine. I'm sorry to my brother, my sister-in-law, and my mother. I was wrong to let her legacy become a weapon in a war I didn't fully understand." William stood in his Kensington office gazing at the garden where his children, George, Charlotte, and Louis, played carefree. He held Elizabeth II's letter, feeling the weight of his duty. "I was right to reform Kate," he said to Catherine, his voice heavy with sorrow. "But the cost was too high, Harry, Camilla, and the scars we all carry." Catherine smiled, resting a hand on his shoulder, her eyes shining with faith. "We've saved the monarchy, William," she said. "Now let's save our family. Harry will come back and Camilla's been stopped. We've won." Catherine stepped onto the balcony, London's lights twinkling like guiding stars. With William's support, she had overcome Camilla's schemes, emerging as a symbol of strength and hope. Together, they led the monarchy into a new era, not with bloodshed, but with unity and faith, leaving the shadows of the past behind.